Well, I'm looking around, sorting through this stuff, trying to figure out what to do. And I was going to check a couple updates, look around there. I noticed that we have Rachel Meadows has finished her set on doing a podcast on Americans in the 40s, basically. And this is quite interesting. Unfortunately, I'm limited on my time. Looks like she has some really unique stills. And I would say from the quality of her work that more than likely there's going to be things that you've never actually probably seen before in any other documentaries. So if you're somebody who likes documentaries, and if you're somebody who's never understood the category area of that particular area, I would, just about guarantee that the material is absolutely top list. Yeah, as an archiver, unfortunately, you end up going over lots of material, but you have very little time in many ways. It's kind of sad. I had the archive had over 80,000 titles in it. All of these things were factory. And it's quite a loss at this point to realize that the sections involving the various diversity of multimedia at this point are no longer readily accessible to me. I can't access this material, and it takes a long time. There's actually items or several items for maybe 8 fragments stuff. I definitely had items in there that are now, they're lost titles. I had basically 4 lost titles. Nobody else had them. And, when you do archiving, eventually that happens. You run into lost titles. Not that the title that you run into is something that's going to be spectacular, but it is a category. It's something you're always looking out for if archiving is part of the category of what you do. But unfortunately, I am limited as to how much time I can devote now because I have all of these other priorities, these duties that I have to deal with, and there's simply not enough funding to keep the doors open, and not when you're coming under attack, and just trying to keep the evidence intact when you have these parties that are deliberately attacking your income and deliberately attacking archives. And it's a horrible situation because then I have to deal with all of the legal material and move it forward. And the difficulty is there's very few people, they don't want to specialize in dealing with archive law. They don't want to have to deal with that. Because it gets into those touchy territories where there's certain items and certain artifacts, and it's like, ooh, that's in there? Wow. Yeah, these people attacked archive. Yeah, that's the death penalty. You have all these people in government, they're just grandstanders. It's really horrible. They're cheap too. You have all these people. You have this fight between Democrats and Republicans all the time, and there's always this concern over we don't have enough money. The departments are short, and this cheapism basically ends up hurting things when it comes to hiring people. The hiring quality of the people that end up getting hired are less. And you got people that are like, well, I'm proud, I do my job. You're just walking up and slapping me in the face, and I'm saying, I'm telling you, would you rather me not be honest, not tell you that these people have a criteria of manipulating their statistics and their requirements because of the budget? So they're looking to find people and pay them like half of what they should be paid for that category. And it gets worse, by the way. And it's just horrible, and the mindset of how all these people work with the economy and the corruptness, the generalized corruptness of where things have gone with our country economically, where you have all these people that they basically put huge sums of money in. They put vast sums of money into their ideas of what they want to happen. And you read through it, and there are lawsuits all the time that come through about corruption, about what people did. But you have this huge liability problem that doesn't want to be addressed by the government. And the liability problem is that they are accepting money from people, large amounts of money, and then they are performing specialized legal modification, legal tasks. And then they are telling other people that are the victims, where you have the situation deliberately targets and victimizes certain segments of our society, and these people do not have the wherewithal in many of these categories, and then they're being told that it's not a criminal matter when it is a criminal matter. They tell them, oh, it's a civil matter, and you have to pursue it yourself. And that's wrong. That's wrong, because these are criminal matters, and basically, they have taken, you have people in government, they have taken vast sums of money from these parties. And this is a form of corruption where then they're telling other people that they're not entitled to services. That's not constitutional. You cannot take money from one side and perform. I had a interruption there. I have to monitor these calls. You can't basically accept vast amounts of money. There's repeated instances where you have a conflict of interest, where the government has accepted money to basically create situations and then tell people that they have to pay for the resolution. You can't do that. And it goes far deeper than just this little brush stroke on it. And, that was part of what I was doing on the design and the archiving, bringing out particular legal inconsistencies and various arguments. And that goes into the permanent AI models for assistive tooling, so that, basically anybody that can be any place would have a series of advanced legalistic assistants of a raw type. It's only essentially, a lot of it was only going to be about 70% correct without doing refinement runs. But then after you do the refinement runs, you get up to about 90%. So now you're talking about the human factor, where you bring in your avatar factors, and you bring in your oracle factors. This is the human input area. That is the people who are responsible for helping to fine-tune things. And, basically then they look at the material and they go, no. So you have a vast problem of conspiracy of the justice system to refuse services, the people that need services. And this concept that people are laying out, saying that, we need more courts and this and that, these statistics that they're trying to show you are so far off, it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling, because you do more and more intense research over the years. You run into things, you stumble on things, so you work on them for a while. And you see these areas where literally vast sums, I'm talking millions and millions of citizens, for instance, in California, are victims. They've been victimized, and they are entitled to all of their legal fees to be paid to resolve various matters. And, and this is nationwide. It's massive. It's just massive. And this is something that our leadership has done. And they don't even want to deal with some of the violations. They're very serious violations, on how it comes down when you're working with the purity of true constitutional mindsets and true constitutional law. And realize that you have people in leadership that have done things that basically put them in the territory of being treasonous, or, we're talking major violations that run the gambit all the way up to the death penalty. There's no joke about this. So when you're engineering the construct for a future mega AI model, when you're working with coming up with the various facets of mass economic modeling, and you're looking at all these different factors, the legal assistive tooling is one of the most important areas that you can have. So when you're looking at protecting, what are the different rights, what are the standard options, what's been taken away from citizens, what's the original core mindset constitutionally, what is the original specific intents of our forefathers who have stated this is how we engineer, this is how we design, this is how we work with the whole thing. For a forward-moving country. And then you have these special areas of we can never allow this or never allow that or never allow this. And you have these people that are looking at this and they don't understand the mindset. They're looking at this and it's like they'll make the comments, this is a document made by these old people who have no idea what we need in our lives. And they're so wrong. It's incredible because they have no idea of what was done by our forefathers in their heads modeling stuff. And you can see that there's, when you get to a point to understand the differences in the different forefathers and the different mindsets, and, because you had some of these things with some of these people on the forefather list, they're kind of sort of like really corrupt. And you have these arguments back and forth for why that's corrupt, and it gets quite interesting. But a lot of the attitudes in legalism was to hide in between things how things really would be. And you had a lot of people, even back then, they wanted to grandstand, they wanted to move through things quickly, they wanted to go make money, they wanted this, that, and the other thing. And a lot of greed factors. A lot of our forefathers had to fight because they didn't understand that when you charge interest, that mathematically you're printing currency, and that we had to keep track of the banks. Otherwise, there would be no money. So they had this model. I forget where I found it, and they did these percentages. Well, what if interest was 10%? And they did this model. And he says, look, what happens is even if it's simple interest in 10 years, the banks have all the money. They charge 10% interest, and the back toe brings everything in. And they have all the money, and there's no money to facilitate the economy. So eventually they made, some of the forefathers made other forefathers look like fools, because when they brought out the tactical table and showed the modeling of it, they couldn't defend themselves. They couldn't defend their viewpoints anymore. It was impossible, because then the rest of them would sit there and nod their heads and go, yeah, you're right. So there's all these different ways we do things and the way the economies originally were designed. And there are very few of the fragments of some of the original notes of the original intent of where we were supposed to go, and it would keep changing. The original constitutional design system of those who were the smartest among the smartest, when they decided to say, okay, we're going to leave the British system, was to make the government basically make the republic a business. It is a business, it is a corporation, and that is the purpose behind making it a corporation, is that the citizens get stock. The citizens become participants in directly getting stock. And there are residuals. So you have government-sponsored capitalism. And the idea was to go as fast as you could. Now keep in mind, the printing press really just kind of sort of didn't exist. It was a lot of pain to sit there and painstakingly set up the typesetting so that you could do the printing, And Congress was one of the first places where you had a typesetter, and they would end up turning things into type material. And so you had a team that would do that. But, as time was going to go on, they knew that they would find a better way to do these things. They knew that they would end up inventing mechanisms where you would have the typesets that would be able to basically move these things rapidly by using some sort of mechanisms and buttons. Basically, they had the idea in their head, the vision of a typewriter. Which, by the way, would make things enormously helpful for making documents high speed, and that would mean that they could reach more people, because the physical time that it took for the forefathers and certain people with the right writing skills and right business skills to go out and talk with Americans. Literally, it was like a bounty system. They would go out and walk around, and these were not people just assessing your real estate like today you would see a tax collector. They go around, they assess your real estate for taxation. Assessment and assessors were part of the original skill set that some of our forefathers had. They would do other things on the fly. They'd assess property. They go, okay, look, you've got property here. You have a lot of trees. Would you be interested in making a sawmill because you're actually at a good location where it would be very practical right here to start salvaging boards out so people could use them? And they're like, well, we don't have the resources. And they're like, I can fix that for you. We can get you the money. And they're like, oh, you can get us the money. Okay, yeah, we can do some kind of a deal. So the government was also the bank. A lot of people kind of miss this. Yeah, you had private banks, but the government was also a bank. But you had to process all these documents by handwriting them. And there was these extreme limitations to how many people had the skill set that could do this. How many of our forefathers could personally get involved and take the time to go out and do this in the beginning? And because the big vision was to get people going and diversified and turn everybody into these businesses and have them basically go as rapidly as they could. And as new people would arrive in the country, that would be an intake for them to say, okay, you're starting out, okay, you get to put your dues in at different levels, and we raise your level up, and we keep moving you along, and you become a steward, you become a landowner, you become all this stuff. Actually, landowner, then steward, you had to become a landowner first. So and people didn't understand this. The idea was they wanted everybody to end up being a landowner, but they wanted you to also be a steward, which means responsibilities. And people didn't understand a lot of this types of vision, and there's the tragedy that some people's heads and minds just couldn't hold a larger vision. Other people were more simpletonish. Other people didn't want to. Other people were like, life's too short. I just want to work, make my own place, and then kick back, and I want to drink some whiskey or whatever and whatever. So you had different people had different ideas of what they wanted to do. And again, longevity was like about 38 years back then. It's 78 years now. So the work schedule for people was generally about 14 years. That was your lifespan of work history, basically. That was your efficiency rating of what you had available. But tracking away. So people not understanding these types of mindsets that can't grab them and then be able to try to work with them faster at high speed. This is a problem. This is a problem for those of us who want to work high speed. You want to get more cogs. You want to have more equipment, more tooling available. Have your standing desk where you're working on your standing desk and get things done more rapidly. And this is the modern world, the modern environment. You have people that are very committed to utilizing computers. The amount of people, to say that in the next year, in the next 10 years, you're going to have 200 million additional people in China getting a hold of AI technology. And the manufacturing equation, if you equate this mass manufacturing to be set up to not only sell product, chips worldwide, but to use it themselves at a bargain rate, you're coming up with fantastically large statistics. You're not talking about 5 computers per person. You're talking about 20 to 100 computers per person of these 200 million people. So all that surplus property is readily available instantly to connect with computer manufacturing that's overage to surplus property availability. There's 87 million empty buildings in China, which means that people are going to be able to very rapidly move into these new computer-related businesses. You don't need much space. You don't need much space. Apartment is easily enough room for 100 computers. And if you have 100 computers each doing AI work, it's mind-boggling. So you're going to have an apartment that is going to basically have 100 computers in it that is going to have the productivity equivalent of well over 1 million people. This will happen very rapidly and will continue to extend. So you have all these people that are studying different types of technology, and we can see this. So we talk amongst each other once in a while, and then we write little letters and notes or tweets or whatever, and we're like, hey, look, we got to move this forward. We've got to massively, we need some billions immediately to go into new chip development. Unfortunately, we're making a lot of supergiants. We need more smaller companies. We need a lot more smaller, diversified companies to be able to do things, although there's a problem. The big, huge wholesale chip production comes from massive machines. It's kind of hard to get around that. But there are ways to get around that, but now you're talking about a whole different area of electronic design. And I couldn't get people on board. Trying to get people on board on that one years ago, walk up to them and say, look, I need $4 billion to make a chip machine, around the year 2000. That was not something that people were really hot to trot to get involved with. But this is a big problem. We've got this huge problem how things have moved forward, and we've got this enormous set of capabilities that are coming into people's hands and understanding what they're going to do with it and where it goes. And a lot of people don't understand. You got people in government don't understand. We had to write letters and pressures, and I wrote several letters. And when I have to get up and basically write letters and then bring in a shocker and say, look, there's these other things about quantum leakage and all this other stuff that has to be accounted because these systems, blah, 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 are not just obsolete, they're breached, they're gone, they're toast, they're over with. So sometimes, let's just say I could write short memos and letters that people would find very upsetting, because I'm the kind of guy, I wrote about quantum leakage prior to the year 2000. So people don't understand how high my knowledge sets go in some of these areas and my design sets and all this other stuff. So this is something, as language models become more and more encompassing and exact, more and more material involving the work that people like me have done, and then you're going to start seeing the anomalies start coming out more. And now the thing is yes, this is a breach problem. We knew about it, but revealing that certain people have certain knowledge. But then we have the balance of the new technology. This is another reason why I'm fighting so hard to say, look, we have to engage this new upgrade to the SAR system. And people are looking at this and they're going, that's insane. You want to put $1 billion into SAR for Border Patrol. SAR and AI for Border Patrol stuff, and I says, yeah, we need to do this. And it goes other places from there. So there's things that I want to do for national security purposes to deal with foreign problems that you have to be able to deal with. And, a lot of these are super advanced systems. They get coupled to other super advanced systems. And you have to work with this understanding for why you need this. And you have areas, you have areas in the Mideast. You have the Palestinian situation where people are just whining and crying and saying, can you stop killing children? Can you stop killing children? And someone says, look, these terrorist guys, they keep inviting children to train them. They give them money, they give them candy, and they give them all this nice talk up. And they keep attracting children. They keep mixing themselves with children and attracting children. And could you police this situation and keep the children away from these terrorists? And these people are like, they give you this dumbfounded look. Different people are talking about this. So it's like, excuse me, you don't want to police separating and protecting your children, but you want to bitch that children are being killed because they're commingling and being allowed to commingle with terrorists that are actively plotting and attacking and murdering people. And now we have to do a cleanup and get this gone. And people don't understand this. And so the solution, let me jump you forward, no war. If I jump you forward to the no war solution, then we're jumping forward, engaging new levels of science. We're going to bring, some radiographic biological signaling understanding. A lot of people can't understand that. And this is some of the areas where I was asked, particularly by the federal government, not to write full papers. I had papers that I was going to put up to the Nobel that also encompassed the understanding of biological radio sets. We're talking very complex data material going into quantum aperture technology integration. We're talking about the understanding that human beings have millions of channels. If you properly want to compute a human being and you're going to go for, like serious medical understanding, a human being has like over 2 million channels of biological radio communication. The sophistication on this is mind-boggling. The work that I did in my lab trying to understand all this signaling was quite incredible. Working with certain types of situations and items, you have people that they just can't hold it in their head when you get to some of this extremely high math and you're explaining how many channels of communication you're going to have to work with and how you're going to have to work with the filtering and the contamination cofactors involving your signaling interpretation, because you have signals that are underneath signals, and you're talking about three-dimensionality biological radio constructs. So, but if I go to the no war situation, no war is when we upgrade certain technology to the point where we have a system in place, so we can just, instead of just scanning with SAR to where we can see a blade of grass, we're going to use quantum aperture technology, like the stuff I was working on in my lab. This is the kind of stuff that it doesn't lose track of a hair. This is beyond the resolution of understanding your hair, okay, as a remote technology, basically. So with quantum aperture technologies, you can scan and get something different. Even though you can't necessarily see an object, you can get the biological radio signaling echoing, which means now you can isolate the signatures. Now you're talking about a massive signature library to understand this, to get to this, and you have to understand what the entire spread pattern was, as far as the human genetic variant is respective to what is plausible as a human being until you get outside the spec zone, and then it's no longer cohesive. And then you have to work with those massive math considerations. So, but in short, if I dumb it down some more, basically you're talking about you catch these echoed patterns, and you're going to signature and see the differences between children, the difference between male versus female, and you're going to end up with particular signature sets that you would have recorded and sampled earlier, and the computers would be able to sit there and say, yes, here's a repeated signature that's associated with these locations, here's supportive information, yes, these particular signals belong to these particular individuals, here's their names, they're terrorists, they're murderers, so on. So then you use this technology where you use your effective jam sets, and you effectively are going to jam certain types of sets. You can actually make control zones where you can use bank understanding of tendencies and actually basically create null zones where you would stop children from being able to go where terrorists are at or scanned. You'd be able to do a lot of fast scanning and just really equate where everybody is very rapidly. And then you could do them into custody. I mean, if you wanted to go with full large, I mean, if you really want to build enough chips to really do it, you can do remote animation. Of course, this is nuclear-powered technology, but if you're going to use remote nuclear animation, now you can set out and you can use non-lethal science. So now you have non-lethal science where you scan a building and you go, yeah, we've got a scan, it's got some terrorists and some kids in it, and you basically freeze these people, you take them into electronic custody. And basically you do a remote high-amplitude electronic coup of their full biological radio body sets, and you walk them outside. You just grab a hold of these guys that are terrorists, and you just walk them outside, and you might do some null zone stuff to try to keep the children away. I don't want to explain the how to use those set of patterns and those frequencies for that. But so basically, you end up with being able to separate these people and bring them out, just take electronic custody of them. And now you're talking no death, no war, and you can deal with this because then there is no longer the capability of these people to make war. And you don't have to use cheap solutions to deal with the problem. You can then take these people into electronic custody and you coup them. You take over their body with all the biological frequency sets, and you walk them out and walk them down to an area for retrieval. And now you don't have to drop bombs and kill other civilians. Your surgical management system is so exact that you don't have to, it's completely non-lethal. You don't have to kill anybody to sort out these problems. But that's these are very expensive systems to bring online, so. And of course, again, when people attack my archive, like Julie Sue and Shirley Weber, and you explain to, and all these different people, Harris included, and you try to explain to them, these police officers right here have to be prosecuted. Look what they've done. They're attacking a candidate. And she wants no part of it. Says, look, you have to. They violated the process of elections. They violated national security. And these people are so stupid, man. They're not listening when you're sitting there explaining them. These people have violated national security. Do you have any idea what technological designs have been displaced and are now out of the country, and I got to use SAR and go get them back? What the hell's the matter with you people? Sorry about that. I get a little upset over the ignorance of these people of who I have to deal with, because it's so simple. It's so childishly simple. And I'm sick and tired of these people's corruptness. It's just totally annoying. I might have to edit that out. I don't know.